So I really appreciate you making the time. Great to have you on, especially this close to the fight. 3 weeks from today, you've got your next title defense at 155 pounds, Cage Titan 61. Just take me through the fight and where you're at right now.
I'm fighting Michael Dufort. I'm defending my lightweight title, and he's a game opponent. He's from Canada, which is funny because he's actually ranked higher in the U.S. than me on Tapology. So it's one of those fights, and I told Cage Titans this when they were struggling to get me an opponent, and I was looking to fight anybody. Just get me somebody that gets me out of bed. Get me somebody that I spend all this money and put all this work into fight camp. And there's guys with smaller names that are still difficult fights, but I want big risk, big reward. I want to lose all this money on fight camp and put all this work in. I want to get the reward for beating such a good opponent. And Dufort is that guy who it's easy to get out of bed in the morning and know that's who I'm working to fight. And I know after I beat him, I'm going to get big praise for it.
What about him excites you, makes it worth investing all of that time, all that money, all your training into?
He wants to be one of the best, just like me, and I believe, works hard. And like I said, I think he thinks he's better than me already. So I also think he's underestimating me, which I feel like a lot of my previous opponents have. And I like that. I like when guys underestimate me. He says he's not impressed with me. That's cool. I'm not getting paid to impress you. I'm getting paid to beat you.
Does it kind of surprise you when you're fighting people and maybe they do underestimate you? I mean, you've become a double champion as a pro, and they're surprising that people kind of doubt you even at this point in your career when you've already had so much success.
It's not weird to me. I'm just an average looking dude. I don't look like a fair. I don't, broadcast that I'm a fighter when I'm out and about meeting people. And I just think that since I have such a weird style, people just assume it's all tricks and BS when there's a lot of basics in it. But I've been underestimated my whole life, my whole pro career. Whenever I fight really good guys, and I have fought some really good guys, and I beat them, there's always an excuse. Not from the opponent, but more from the fans or his fans or haters in general. It's like, oh, they had an off night, or oh, he got lucky with this, or something along those lines, which I feel like is more of a discredit to my opponent than it is to me, because I've beaten plenty of guys where I was supposed to be the underdog, and then in hindsight, they're like, oh, well, that was an easy fight for him anyways, or oh, he had a bad night. So, the narrative always changes when I get in there and look good.
So when you're out there and you have all these feelings about, you talked earlier about, all the investment you do to get ready for a fight, how fulfilling is it when you're able to get the job done?
It's awesome, man. It makes me feel like everything that I did was worth it and had a meaning, because these fight camps are expensive. These fight camps are difficult physically and mentally. Like, I'm away from my family and friends, and when they raise my hand or when I get the finish and the fight's over, it's just like a big like relief, just weight off my chest. Like, okay, it was worth it. Like, we got it done, and like we're just another step closer to our dreams.
Your next title fight's at 155 pounds, but we know you've planted your flag at 170 as well. What are your plans up a weight class going forward?
So Cage Titans, I win this fight. After this fight, unless the UFC calls or another, high level that is worth it to me, financially, and has a reward for the UFC's eyes, I'm probably gonna have to 170. Kind of strapped on money, so I'll be able to make a quick turnaround and fight on the Cage Titans November card. So whenever their first card of the year is, there'll be plenty of time for me to bulk up over the winter, become a welterweight again, and start defending that title and clear out that division too.
Is the weight cut to 55 hard at all, or is it just something that you at this point in your career you just kind of handle?
It sucks. I mean, it's a weight cut. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's the weight cut itself, like the last few days, isn't so hard. It's just because I want to be such an active fighter and I try to be in fight camp so much, it's the prolonged, keeping my weight so low. Like, people don't realize when I walk around lean, even before fight week and in the actual weight cut, like, I'm not eating a crazy amount of food. Like, I'm eating just enough food to fuel my training, and that's really about it. And it's not a fun lifestyle. So that honestly where I'm mentally then like the last week of cutting weight. Like I'll do that every week. I used to wrestle in high school. I'll cut weight every single week. I don't care. But it's the, you know, hey, you're fighting in 5 months, but you got to be in good enough shape for when you go to AKA. They don't just get ragdolled the whole time. So get your weight down. And then I'm at AKA getting ragdolled, and I got to eat just enough food to keep myself fueled and start cutting back my weight. So that's really the harder part. It's just that prolonged keeping the weight down.
So you just talked about, some of the challenges of this career and this business, and you've also talked about some of the good feelings that you get when you're able to have success. What about fighting makes you love it? What makes you want to do it?
I played every sport growing up, like maybe almost every sport. All team sports, baseball, basketball, soccer, football, hockey. And I wasn't great at most of them. I was decent at soccer. I was pretty good at baseball. But the biggest thing that I never really liked about those sports is, and you see it in every sport, your team loses because that guy over there messed up, or like they didn't pass you the ball, or like somebody didn't pass somebody else the ball when they should have. And now you guys have an L. And the biggest thing that I like about wrestling, and like I played tennis for a little bit, and, fighting, is it's all on you. You still have a team and you still need that team. So you get that camaraderie, you get that work. But at the end of the day, if you slack in practice, or you cut corners, or you're being lazy in competition, the only person getting punished is you. That's it. It's all on you at the end of the day. Whether you get bad coaching from your corner that day or bad prep from your team, whatever, everything falls on you. And that's also a hard part, but it's something that at the end of the day, I like. I like knowing that good or bad, it's all on me. I don't have to depend on anybody else for it, and can't blame anybody else for it.
Talk about that nickname. You've got a pretty cool nickname, and obviously, a lot of memes about the character. I've seen you post some of them. Where'd that come from?
So I third back when we thought I was going to be a 45er. That's not happening. So I had a catch weight amateur fight at 50, and I was cutting weight. Weight cut was going great, and we were probably a week or two out from the fight, and my buddies were all hanging out, and they're all messing with me because I was super sucked out. I think I was walking around at like 57, and they were like, "Dude, you're so skinny. Like your face is so sucked out. You look like Skeletor." And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever. Thanks, guys." So I'm going to barbecues and parties and just sitting there sipping on water. And then the weigh-ins happen. We end up getting a new opponent at weigh-ins. My opponent just pulled out, didn't show up. Got a different opponent, same catch weight. And then the next day we show up to the venue, and the announcer, this wasn't Cage Titans, it was another local show. And then the announcer comes over in the locker room before the fights and goes, "Hey kid, what's your nickname?" And I was like, "I don't know." I was like, "My coach picks my nickname every time. Like it hasn't been set in stone. I had 2 fights. I had 2 different nicknames." And he goes, "All right, I'll go find them." And so I didn't talk to my coach about it. I didn't hear them talk about it. It's my time. My hands are wrapped. I walked out and go fight. And they're announcing me in the ring, and I'm pacing back and forth. And I just hear, "Joe, Skeletor, Giannetti." And I was like, huh. I was like, I wonder if he talked. If I wouldn't, I said, "Go ahead. How'd you know about Skeletor? Like you talked to my friends before the fight?" And he was like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." And I was like, "The announcer told me that you picked my nickname." And he goes, "I did." And I go, "You didn't hear my friends call me Skeletor all week?" And he was like, "No." And it just from there, it stuck.
So I take that to mean you like it.
I do. It's so true. Like when I get closer to cutting weight, like my face just gets so sucked out. But like when I rehydrate, it's also the first thing to fill out.
You're at 170. You don't have that problem as much, do you?
No, not at all. The last time I fought at 70, I only cut 6 pounds in the sauna. And I was eating good the whole time. I didn't really cut back on anything nutritionally, and then just suck some water out and I was good to go.
What was that feeling like last year about this time actually when you got that win to be a double champion and you got that second belt put around your shoulder? What was that like?
It was wicked cool because nobody at Cage Titans has ever done it as a pro. And I did it in 2 weight classes that have like one of the biggest differences in weight. So it's not 45 to 55 or 35 to 45, it's 15 pounds up to 70. And then, you've got 70 to 85 and then 85 to 205. So those are like the big jump weight classes. So to have a belt in 2 of those is really cool. especially because I know a lot of people thought it was kind of just like almost like a publicity stunt. Like, let's have him fight at 70, get him a belt, and then that'll look good for the UFC. And like, hopefully it does look good for the UFC. But I told them, I was like, I'm not winning this belt just to like win it and then go back to 55 and like get rid of it. I am a 55er. I want to fight at 55, but after the last year of not being able to get opponents, or I had like one opponent this year. That fight fell through because I got sick. And then the other one, the fight actually happened. And then ever since March, I've just been sitting around getting healthy and waiting for a name. I've had guys pull out. I've had guys say yes and then no 2 days later. So now we're towards the end of the year. I finally have a third opponent officially locked in. And it's just such a strain to figure out, am I fighting at 70? Am I fighting at 55? So I'm kind of just taking the reins, like this is a very big fight. I win this fight, then I'm going to focus on 70 for a little bit. And the UFC wants me at 55, like they've said before, I'll go right back to 55.
If the UFC calls and it's a fight at 170, I have to assume your game, right? I mean, you're going to take that fight 100%.
100%. When Ian Gary's opponent pulled out for UFC Boston a couple weeks ago, I called DC and I told him, I was like, hey, tell Shelby I'll fight him at 170. I think I was weighing like 78 and I still had like a week and a half. I was like, tell him I'll make the weight, and I live 30 minutes from the Garden.
When you get that opportunity again to put yourself in a showcase for the UFC, what are some of the improvements that you want to show the UFC and the fans from when you were on Tough and as you've gone throughout your career? How have you improved the most?
I got older. You know what I mean? I grew up. I was the youngest kid on that season at Tough. I was 22. I turned 23 the day before the finale, and I was trying to just have fun with it. I took it very serious. I busted my ass the whole fight game. I was a 23-year-old kid living the dream. I slept in a foreclosed house with my dad when I was in high school for 4 months in the middle of the winter with no heat. He's sleeping on an air mattress with 7 blankets to stay warm. So now I'm walking out at Pearl at the Palms for the Ultimate Fighter finale, and it was a dream come true. But I feel like I kind of got ahead of myself, where like I felt like I accomplished the goal, even though we still had plenty of work to do to even solidify my spot in the UFC, forget a run. So nowadays it's just kind of like I get what the actual goal is, and I'm not 100% satisfied until I get there.
So there are some guys in UFC that you've had history with, Paddy Pimblett being one of them. You were supposed to fight. Do you see that as a fight that you would still want if it came back around? I know he's kind of laid up right now and nobody's quite sure when he's going to be back or who it's going to be, but is that something that interests you?
Yeah, for sure. And it's a tough spot because like now that he's like a superstar in the UFC, everybody's calling him out just for like the clout. Everybody that fights, every older guy, every newer guy is all Patty, Patty, Patty. When I get in the UFC again, I'm gonna make my own money. I'm gonna have my own contract. I want my own stardom. But that's kind of one of those fights where it's like, no, I just want that fight. Like I just want to get my hands on him and beat him up. There was plenty of things that we said back and forth that he didn't want to back up in person. Throughout that whole fight week where the fight didn't end up happening, we had multiple in-person um, like scuffles, I guess, and nothing came of it. And every single time it turned into like, oh no, if it happens in the future one day, it happens in the future. And then I shake hands and walk away, and then he's talking shit about me on Twitter. And I told him, I don't know how it works in the UK, but like in America, when you talk like that, like we can just go outside and settle it. Like it doesn't have to be to the death, but win or lose, we can just settle it and then shake hands and be on our way. But whatever. Now it's been prolonged, and one day it'll happen, and I'll get paid to beat his ass.
So you two both, fight out of places that have very passionate fan bases. Him being Liverpool, you obviously Boston, and I guess where I'm going with this is you want to fight on a UFC Boston card in the future. What would be the significance of that for you if you're able to do it?
As a kid that, growing up, I watched the Red Sox religiously. Like the 2004 World Series was like the highlight of my childhood. I remember staying up late with my parents on school nights and always thinking like, I'm going to be in the MLB one day. I'm going to play for the Red Sox, and then going through my whole basketball phase where I'm going to be on the Celtics, and now I'm in a sport again where it's like I can compete at the TD Garden in the middle of Boston. It would just mean everything to me, like my childhood self, and it's one of my dreams. And I think, if it was a fight versus somebody like Patty, we get the red coach to come to Boston again and kick their ass. It's just a historical event.
Have you ever sat on the Green Monster?
I haven't. I think I've sat everywhere else. I've sat in box seats. I've sat in behind home plate, first base, third baseline. Green Monster is the only place I haven't sat yet.
I went 4 years ago now, and they were playing the Rays, and me and my dad, we went to 3 games, and I spent like 5 or 6 innings of game two begging him to sit on the monster for the last day, and we finally did it. And I sat right next to the foul pole, and it was awesome. I'm a huge baseball guy, and to me, Fenway is still the standard of baseball parks. One of the best experiences of my life. I mean, the fan base, night in and night out. Obviously, the Red Sox, usually one of the best products on field in baseball. Lots to like. Mookie was still playing there at that time. And it was just a great experience. I loved my time in Boston. And I kind of saw some of what makes it so special for, people that are from Boston and love Boston, and the athletes for who it means so much. And what do you think of the fight card in Boston? Big finish to the main event, a lot of people buzzing, but what do you think of that fight card?
I think that it was a lot better than a lot of us thought it would be, myself included. So I think the main event really had a part in that, but I think that it was probably one of the busiest UFC Boston cards we've ever had. And now with social media blowing up so much since like COVID and stuff with TikTok and Instagram Reels, you see all these podcasts and all these MMA fans just like, wow, I went to my first live UFC and it was insane. Or like, I watched the UFC Boston and the crowd was full from the prelims to the main event. Like Boston loves fights, and we only get the UFC every 4 or 5 years, which is crazy to me. Um, we've got so many guys, and I'd say the biggest disappointment from UFC Boston is nobody from Boston being on the card, whether it's me or anybody else. Just having nobody is tough. Like I know Rob Font had gotten pulled off to fight Sandhagen, and Calvin's still healing. Billy Goff had a fight booked already. But there's so many guys not signed yet. Even signing one or two, you already have the garden packed from the prelims to the main event. Why not get it packed even faster? Before the doors even open, you'll have lines down the street for people going to see their friends. But I think the next UFC Boston, we've got a new wave of talent coming up. I think you're going to see a lot of guys on the main card and the prelims from Boston.
So you being one of those people, a lot of folks have got their eyes on you already. What about your skill set makes you exciting to the fans? The fans want to watch you, and what about you is the most dangerous once you're in there?
I think my yeah, so like for me, it's just one of those things where, I'm a fan first. I know what fans want, I know what I want, I know what type of fights get people going, get people online, get people talking about you, because when those fights are where I'm watching, I'm on Twitter reposting them, I'm talking about it, I'm telling my friends, and especially, social media, and everybody's got a podcast nowadays. It's like I watch all that and I see these fights and I know what excites me. So I go out there and that's what I'm fighting to do, along with not getting paid by the hour. I'm in there to get in and out on exciting shows, exciting finishes, and the fans are realizing that. And so, I might not be the best get in the cage. They know that I'm in there for the finish, whether I'm winning the fight or losing the fight. There's still always a chance I'm going to finish somebody. As far as like getting in the cage, I think it's one of those things when people don't realize. I heard a quote a while ago. I see it reposted all the time, and it's people don't realize the violence that it took to become this peaceful. And as a kid who got bullied growing up, I was short, I was overweight, I had anger issues, got into plenty of fights. I'm just like the least confrontational. I try not to get angry. Like I don't care about most shit. Like it just, turn the other cheek. But when I get in the cage, all that anger and disappointment in my life, or even anger myself for mistakes that I've made that I haven't come to terms with yet, I get to express that and I get to take it out on something. You have to control your emotions as a man or just as any person. But, when I'm in the cage, I can use those emotions. I hear so many people say, like, don't fight angry, don't fight angry. I don't see why not. I mean, I think you should fight angry if you can control it. It's the same way people say that you should control your fear. Either fear can control you or you can control your fear. I think anger is the same way. I feel like every time that I'm like, no, don't fight angry, don't do this, I fought horribly and I lost fights that I should have won. But nowadays it's like when I fight, that's my time. Be angry, be mad as hell, but use it. I get so mad that I know that I need to win this fight. I'm not going to do something out of anger. That anger is actually going to guide me to do the right thing so I don't lose.
Really appreciate your time today. That wraps up what I had for you. Thank you again for joining me this close to the fight, and best of luck. I wish you the best in the future, and I'm absolutely confident we'll be seeing you in the UFC soon.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.